3 years and the huge job losses that we've seen at the same time. And if we can do that, we will at least be doing the people's work in terms of trying to address the major problems that I think face most Americans and the things that they're most concerned about every single day. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, democracy, meaning government of the people, by the people, and for the people, does not thrive or even survive unless we have a well-informed and well-educated public who are thinking about, discussing, and debating the important issues facing our country. In order to stimulate that goal, I have for the last 2 years sponsored an essay contest asking Vermont's high school students what they think the United States should be doing to address the major problems facing our country. In other words, while tonight we hear from the President of the United States regarding his views about the State of the Union, the essays that these Vermont students have written express their views about the State of the Union. I am delighted that 308 students from 30 different high schools throughout Vermont thought about these challenges as they wrote their own State of the Union essays. And I want to thank each and every one of them for their participation in the contest and the time and the effort that they put into those essays. I also want to thank the 5 teachers who acted as judges for these essays. They are Brian Burgess of Hazen Union High School, Liz LeBrun of Pulteney High School, Lois Little of Canaan Memorial High School, Joe Maley of South Burlington High School, and Terry Vest of Twinfield Union High School. Mr. President, I want to tell you and my colleagues that the winner of this essay contest, selected by the panel of 5 Vermont teachers, is Jennifer Sikorsky, a senior at Winooski High School. In addition to Jennifer, 18 students were named as finalists. The 4 runner-ups are Monica Allard, Milton High School, Kaylee Ayla Vach, South Burlington High School, Kate Roska, Champlain Valley Union High School, and Carolina Sowileska, Burr and Burton Academy. Because of the excellent quality of the essays, we honored the 14 other students with an honorable mention. Mr. President, I ask that all of these essays be submitted for publication in the Congressional Record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I yield the floor.
Clerk, call the roll.
1 second. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the presiding officer of the Senate be authorized to appoint the committee on the part of the Senate to join a like committee on the part of the House to escort the President of the United States into the House chamber for the joint session to be held tonight at 9 p.m.
Without objection.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I have one unanimous consent request for a committee to meet during today's session of the Senate that has the approval of the majority and minority leaders. I ask unanimous consent that this request be agreed to and that this request be printed in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Clerk, call the roll. Not. Quorum. Senator.
What? I ask for a quorum call.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Well, the Senate is expected to recess at about 12:30 for their weekly party lunches. They'll return at 2:15 this afternoon. It'll be mostly general speeches in the Senate for today. Tomorrow, senators are planning to attend their annual issues conference. They may or may not be in. We will let you know that as soon as we find that out. And later this week, Senate lawmakers are expected to hold a vote related to the House's resolution of disapproval on the president's debt ceiling increase request. President Obama is asking for a $1.2 trillion increase. The House adopted that resolution last week. Also today, conferees are meeting on the payroll tax extension, an extension of unemployment benefits and Medicare payments to doctors, among other issues. That is set for 2:30 Eastern today. We will have live coverage on C-SPAN 3 and on C-SPAN radio. And of course, the U.S. House is in session right now. You can see live coverage of the House on C-SPAN. Well, the U.S. Senate gavels in this morning at 10.
Mr. President,
Senator from North Dakota,
I asked with quorum call be dispensed with.
without objection.
Mr. President, in listening to some of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, both in speeches here and in press statements they have made, I hear repeatedly them say that we have not had a budget for 1,000 days. Mr. President, that's just wrong. That is just absolutely wrong. Sometimes I wonder if our colleagues are paying attention to what goes on here on the floor of the United States Senate. Have they already forgotten the Budget Control Act? Mr. President, here it is. August 2nd of last year, the Budget Control Act passed this body 74 to 26. More than half of our Republican colleagues voted for it. Didn't they know what they were voting on? The Budget Control Act contains the budget for this year and for next year. Weren't they paying attention? Don't they know what they voted on? Mr. President, in many ways, the Budget Control Act is stronger than a typical budget resolution. And it is stronger in these ways. Number one, it is more extensive than a traditional budget resolution. Number two, it has the force of law. Unlike a budget resolution that is not signed by the President, the Budget Control Act that we passed last August that provides the budget for this year and for next year is a law passed by the House of Representatives, passed by the Senate, signed by the President of the United States, the Budget Control Act. It also set discretionary caps on spending for 10 years instead of the 1 year normally set in a budget resolution. So when our colleagues come out here and say we've not had a budget in 1,000 days, wow. Can they really have missed the vote, the debate, the consideration of the Budget Control Act? Did they really miss all that? Or are they saying something they know to be untrue? Because really, those are the only choices you're left with. Either they don't know what they did, or they are misrepresenting what we all did. Mr. President, not only does the Budget Control Act set discretionary caps for 10 years, it also provided enforcement mechanisms, including a 2-year deeming resolution, allowing budget points of order to be enforced. That's what a budget does. It sets the spending levels, it creates spending caps, and it provides enforcement mechanisms. All of that in the Budget Control Act that we passed on August 2nd of last year with a vote of 74 to 26. Not only did we pass it, but the Republican-controlled House passed it, and the President signed it. It is the law of the land. It sets the budget for this year. It sets the budget for next year. It provides enforcement mechanisms. It sets 10 years of spending caps, and it created a reconciliation-like super committee to address entitlement and tax reforms. Now, that super committee didn't come up with a result, but they were established in the Budget Control Act. And they were given the authority, just like a reconciliation provision would, to come back with a package that could not be filibustered and could not be altered and could pass with a simple majority. Mr. President, that is the fact. So if we hear colleagues come out and say one more time, we have not had a budget for 1,000 days, I hope somebody will have the sense to stand up and say, really? Well, what was the Budget Control Act about? What was this legislation that passed not only the United States Senate on a vote of 74 to 26, but passed the House of Representatives that's controlled by the other party and was signed by the President of the United States? Mr. President, Republican rhetoric aside, Congress did pass a budget, not through the normal way of a budget resolution, but through an actual law. The Republican-controlled House passed it, the Democratic Senate passed it, and the President signed it. The Budget Control Act set 10 years of spending caps, established a 2-year deeming resolution to enforce spending levels, and it created a reconciliation-like process to consider entitlement and tax reform. Mr. President, I hope we have laid this issue to rest. So now if I hear colleagues come out and say that we've not had a budget for 1,000 days, I will know that they've been put on fair notice. Maybe they missed somehow what they were voting on back in August. Maybe they gapped out. Maybe they forgot. But you know what? They voted for it. Every member of the Senate voted on the Budget Control Act. 74 to 26, added up, that's 100. Everybody was here. And if they didn't know what they were voting on, now they do. So if I hear another assertion that there's not a budget for 1,000 days, I will know, and the listeners will know, that somebody's not telling the truth. I thank the chair and yield the floor. I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
The Senate in a quorum call, and they're expected to be in general speeches for a good part of the day. They're waiting for the House to finish up their work on the temporary extension of federal aviation programs. That's the main part of the House legislative agenda for today. The House is also working on instruction to conferees on the payroll tax cut extension. That conference committee is meeting later today. We'll have that live for you on our companion network, C-SPAN 3 at 2:30 this afternoon. Back to the House for a minute. The Republican leaders in the House have announced that they're adding Arizona Democratic Representative Gabrielle Giffords' border security bill to Wednesday's agenda. Gabby Giffords is expected to be in the chamber, the House chamber this evening for the State of the Union speech. And our coverage of the State of the Union starts this evening at 8 o'clock Eastern on C-SPAN and C-SPAN 2.